Okay, I will call the committee back to order. And we're on to item 3D, South Bruce Peninsula Official Plan Amendment, number 30.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the last meeting, we discussed this issue, and there was a number of potential options provided for in the report, and certainly with the preferred recommendation as well. As a result of that meeting, it seemed that there was a number of issues requiring clarity, and planning staff took that to mean that we would go back then and try to provide some clarity in terms of the application and the issues and so on and so forth. And so in your package is the full report from the previous meeting. In addition to, we made a request to the town for additional information if they had anything else they could help us with. And additionally, a couple of letters of support that were provided by the mayor of South Bruce Peninsula. And so the purpose of this presentation then is to sort of refine the core issues and again reiterate what we felt were the three options for consideration.
Yes. Janice, you have a question first?
I have a comment. The report is sitting as it was on September the 15th with the recommendation that you accept option 2, but option 2 was defeated on September the 15th. So that shouldn't even be a consideration for this council today. We're just dealing with option 1 and option 3. So you either accept OPA 30 or you reject it. But any kind of a variance or any change to the OPA 30 is not on the table at all. You guys defeated that. So I just want to try and make this as easy as possible and as less convoluted as possible. I don't think we need to go over the entire report because you guys went over it. I was not here, Deputy Mayor Kirkland was, but I certainly watched the whole video, so I know exactly what happened. And the information, I believe, Councillor or Mayor Eadie, was basically around Sparlings and that whole issue and your concern over that, which is valid. But I just wanted to remind this council that you made the decision to defeat option 2. So that's not on the table today. It's only option 1 and option 3.
I'd like staff to respond to that, either Chris or Kelly.
I will, through you, Mr. Chair, that the statement that the item was defeated is incorrect. The item was deferred to be brought back forward. The official plan amendment for the urban lands was passed, but no, there was no, it did go around in a bit of circular discussion, but the public vote was to defer the recommendations.
The Bruce County OPA passed, but our municipal Plan 30, the option 2 was defeated, option 3 was on the table, and it was about to go to a vote, and there was some concerns, and it was deferred at that point.
I would ask for further clarification from staff. Kelly?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the public record was that the official plan amendment number 30 was deferred. It was not acted on, and it still remains an open item for this committee's consideration.
Okay. Milt, would you like to comment about that as well?
Well, all I want to do is to ask Chris to go through it because it's confusing for us, Janice.
Okay.
If that's okay, I would like to have the report, and yes, just that we not bypass too much, that we
Okay.
have the planning staff.
I think we
present.
can do that. I agree. It's very, very complex, and we need to review it. So, Jack, you're going to be doing that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What we've outlined today is a brief agenda here for some of the matters to go through in reviewing this application. So as some of these other ones, this is a decision regarding a local plan amendment. The public process was conducted and completed at the local level, and so it's before the county to make a decision on the local plan amendment. And part of the reason for this presentation is that the Planning Act requires us to ensure that the approval authority, in this case the county, considers information that's provided to the local municipality. I think some of the cause of deferral last go around was my difficulties manipulating the PDF, and so we have this PowerPoint to help us move through the file.
So is what you're putting up on the screen the same as in the presentation? Because I remember seeing that in the presentation. Can you just tell us what page it is if it's in the presentation?
Yes, if you are in your agenda, this is this presentation file immediately follows the staff report. So it's item, if you go down one more, Chris, right there. So it's 3D.
Pardon? Okay, thanks. Okay.
Everybody got it? 199, I think it is.
The reason Jack has a separate presentation is to be able to see the whole screen, better quality on the screen.
Okay. So we're going to run through some background supporting information, the town's plan, Sparling's servicing consideration, and then the options for a decision. So this is an area annexed some raw unserviced land from Amabel Township back in the 1990s to get a better handle on development at the edge of the town, and that was a friendly annexation. It was designated highway commercial, and that's the green up on the screen there on the front lands. And, that's a different map. It was designated highway on the front, and it was designated industrial in the back. And it was assigned Phase 2 and 3 priority for servicing, which is the map that you see there, Phase 2 being green, Phase 3 being the red stripes. Servicing for the attention of council during the proposed OPP station construction near Boat Lake Road in 2007, and the image to the right there shows a proposed servicing plan that was developed at that time. The concept was that servicing infrastructure would be extended down to the OPP station, which is near Boat Lake Road, at the bottom of that map on the right, within approximately, in that area, within about a 5-year time horizon. And shortly after that, a developer approached the town with a proposal to establish 1,200 to 1,500 unit adult lifestyle community on the raw unserviced lands at the south end of Wyerton. The lands, as we said, designated highway commercial and industrial. And the town sponsored a comprehensive review and a plan amendment to redesignate surplus employment lands to an alternative use. At the time, this was the general concept that was submitted with that initial idea. The majority of the lands outlined in white being sort of residential, and the hatched area indicating sort of a village center concept. The area up in the top right corner, there marked with an X, is an area that is currently within the residential designation. And again, that's sort of the area that we're dealing with. There you see the same area, the existing designations, highway commercial in this vicinity and industrial in this area. And to the west is the lands that were added as a result of last meeting through County Official Plan 157. So the town commissioned the development or the comprehensive review. The development an interest in this property contributed concepts to the proposal, including adding the 20 hectares to the urban boundary, and that was dealt with through County Plan Amendment 157, as well as a proposal for a village center. And this village center designation evolved to include the description below with restaurants, accommodations, medical, financial, entertainment uses, and then specifically not including single-use alcohol sales, so like LCBO or beer store. Would also permit multifamily residential, assisted living, professional and personal service uses, institutional uses, community facilities, and open space. So that's the background. When we get into the comprehensive review, the comprehensive review was focused on the Wiarton settlement area as the only fully serviced area in the municipality. And the review, they basically look at or they do a number of models to figure out how much employment land you need and how much residential land you need over the next time horizon. And so they identified a need for 12.5 hectares of employment lands over the next 20 years and a supply of 137 hectares. So that leaves a surplus of about 124.5 hectares, which is a considerable surplus. It identified demand for 39.4 hectares of residential lands over 20 years based on traditional growth projections. We have noted 629 new dwelling units, and it identified a supply of 23.9 hectares. So there's a demand for an additional 15.5 hectares of residential land for 20 years. So there's 124.5 hectares of surplus employment lands and a need for 15.5 hectares of residential lands. So the review noted it may be difficult to comprehend the need for additional residential land to support 1,200 to 1,500 dwelling units in light of the foregoing residential land supply versus demand review. However, one must consider a large-scale development of this nature may spawn its own form of induced population demand, in which the development itself serves as an attractive destination for new residents from outside the region in a manner which would defy historic development trends. So that is the essential rationale for adding considerable residential lands. The review also noted that the proponent has suggested development including commercial uses that intend to serve the needs specific to the adult lifestyle community. These uses will be included within a proposed village center consisting of home care, mobility services, health and fitness, leisure, convenience, retail, and institutional facilities. As we know before, the description of that village center did evolve over time. The developer's delegation to council described the village center as a magnet, something akin to the Blue Mountain Village, although we noted, and this slide is from a staff report to the local council, without perhaps the directly adjacent ski resort as the travel motivator. The requested range of uses in the village center closely resembles the range and function of uses in the downtown, only a short distance away. And again, we note some policies to keep anchor tenants in the downtown as opposed to the village center. The town official plan's criteria for amendment. Generally, this amendment is consistent with the majority of the town's goals and objectives. We had a concern regarding objective M, which is to make the downtown the economic focus of the community. And we looked at some of these criteria to amend the plan if an amendment is proposed. The notion here was that residential growth will have some commercial demands which may not be readily met by the existing downtown, in part due to its distance, and also additional residential development creates demand for additional commercial development. The concern expressed is the 14-hectare size of the village center relative to the 16-hectare downtown, and again, the mirroring of those functions. Since that time, since these reports were undertaken, properties of various sizes have become available for use, development, and or redevelopment in the downtown of Wiarton, and they could likely accommodate the majority of commercial floor area demands that would be generated or supported by further residential growth within the settlement area. So this is a review of information that was presented to the town as well. Moving to the Sparlings propane facility, the image in this slide is a conceptual image that is designed to illustrate their concern with the application. Sparlings as a facility, there's some risks associated with its location, and as such it's required to prepare a risk safety management plan. Their general concept for managing risks includes, what types of activities are occurring in the vicinity, and the idea is that, immediately next to a facility you want no other use. As distance increases, risk decreases, and so some uses such as manufacturing, warehousing, open space uses and things like that are acceptable risks closer to a facility. Lower density residential activity or uses are an acceptable level of risk a little bit further away. Higher density residential should be further away still, and service institutions should be furthest away. They advise that they have no conflict with existing development in the area or the development that would be permitted within the existing designations. And here you see on this slide their risk hazard area is a 794 meter hazard distance. And so they had a letter. This letter is also in your package attached to the end of the staff report, indicating they are not opposed to development that's compatible with their use of their facility and its surroundings. They're concerned particularly with assisted living or nursing homes being located within the hazard distance. When we review this, this is the issue with Sparlings arose during the circulation process. It had not been identified earlier on in the process, and from the review of it, as we noted in the previous meeting, the obligation is to notify the operator of the proposed change of use, and the purpose is for the operators to understand risks in their area and adjust their safety plans accordingly. And the question is whether there's further obligations beyond that in terms of introducing uses that conflict with the existing facility. In terms of servicing considerations, the provincial policy statement is interested in making sure that infrastructure is sustainable and viable over the long term and is considered at all stages of the planning process. During the review of this file, we had recommended a master servicing study for the area to engage all the stakeholders, address water, sewer, and stormwater, determine cost sharing to reduce the risks associated with infrastructure for the area, and consider physical conditions and compatible uses to lay out the area. And the concept was then a project list for the area. We noted lagoon expansion requiring further assessment, some other precedents, and some funding. And this is an example of, was an example that we'd suggested might be appropriate. The outcome of the town's servicing plan is an identification of infrastructure needs within Wiarton, including to address growth in this area. And the scope of that review has been limited to providing services to the property boundary, not to dealing with services within the site. The plans and studies for specific works within the site would be the responsibility of the developer. The town has completed and adopted the master servicing plan, and that's reflected in the letter that you just received from the town. There are some potential outcomes to changes to that master servicing plan, including a changed area for a new pump station. This allows its construction to be deferred and its costs to be assigned almost entirely to the study area because the service area changes to remove existing users, and it would service almost entirely the proposed development of this area. The town has also identified what could be a lower cost means of providing water supply to this area. The town has a development charges study, which has been noted also in the letter. There's a concept for 1,500 units. Staff had expressed some concerns about the absorption rate or the development rate that the bylaw is based on, and those were forwarded to the town. So just, again, background information. So what is, again, before the committee is some options in respect of decisions on this application. An option is to refuse the amendment, find another use for the land due to the financial risks of servicing it versus market demand, improve infrastructure and intensify development within the existing serviced areas of the town. This would control financial risk associated with servicing. There is some area within the lands that are already in the residential designations. The costs include potential loss of development, servicing issues remain, capital investment in the sewage lagoon that the town has made may go underutilized, and there may be a shortage of residential lands in the 20-year planning horizon. So staff does not recommend this option. And that's what it looks like in terms of a map. The second option is to modify the amendment. This would redesignate some lands to residential based on information that was commissioned by the town in its comprehensive review. This option was presented to local council in 2013. It was the staff recommendation in 2015 as well that led to the adoption of the ultimate adoption of the amendment. Involves designating the majority of the site residential. The lands that have been added to the settlement area through amendment number 157 are designated rural, and no changes to the text of the plan are required. There's some benefits noted here. Town demonstrating commitment to residential uses in the area by redesignating employment lands based on its comprehensive review. It removes the private development interest from the town's amendment. It assigns residential lands to an area that's already proposed to be serviced through a pumping station on Elm Street. It's consistent with the master servicing strategy and sewage lagoon expansions. It maintains highway, commercial, and industrial designations for those functions. And there's no conflict with existing or planned uses, including propane storage and industrial uses in the area. The costs of this are, it is not supported by the developers who have an option to purchase vacant lands in the area that's subject to the amendment. And that's what that amendment looks like. And the third option we prepare for you is the amendment that was adopted by local council. So benefits of this amendment, it is supported by the developers who have an option to purchase again the vacant lands in the area. It has been revised to address risks to some extent versus the original proposal. And it is the amendment that was adopted by the town. Some costs or concerns. There's an adjacent use, which is Sparling's Propane, which objects to the approach. I suppose there's risk of appeal to the OMB in all of these circumstances. This one perhaps may be elevated. And another cost is the introduction of a commercial area that mirrors the function of the downtown a short distance away. And this slide was not in your package. I realized it was neglected. But the schedule that forms this slide is located on page 156 in your agenda package, if you want to see it on your own screen. What you see here in terms of changes, if you recall, in the original developer's concept, the village center was oriented this way. It is instead oriented this way. That removes conflict from an existing industrial use located here. Leaves some additional highway commercial area and locates some of the village center designation at the further limits of the hazard distance from the Sparling's Propane facility. So those are the three options that we had identified previously, brought back to hopefully clarify to you and give you some additional information.
All right, thank you, Jack, for that explanation, and that does clear up a number of things, I'm sure, for all of us, some of us. Yes, Kelly?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, just before it goes into the questions, I wonder if it would provide clarity for committee if the submission from the developer were put up to show what the nature of the development is?
I'm sorry, is that the slide from?
Again, through you, Mr. Chair. So the next slide after this is the other, the drawing for the, I'm just thinking that as the questions occur, it would probably be helpful to be able to show the differences as you go through the three options. So that's the proposal, but then there's the map of the town itself. You had it up just a moment ago.
So looking for the three, like option 1, option 2, option 3?
No, the map. So you have the, if we could show that one and then show what it looks like when you're looking at the aerial. So then I think it was the next one that you had up? There, okay.
We'll start with questions then, or comments. Janice?
Thanks. Thank you. So it's quite apparent in the recommendation of option 2 that the goal is to just remove the retail and commercial aspect of this development, not the residential component, but, and it appears that the concern is to eliminate having a second, what is being touted as a downtown core or a competition to the downtown core. And I don't think that that's, I don't think that's a fear at all. I don't think that's going to happen. If we bring in this many new residents, it's going to call for more shops and services. And I think Mayor Smith, and I mean, you've got a great downtown core, and then to the north of that, you've got some additional retail, and it seems to be working quite well in Port Elgin. So, you know, the town has been stagnant for 100 years. We haven't been able to grow. We've been maxed out on our infrastructure. We haven't been able to allow anything more than scattered infill within the downtown core. And this council, really, we heard loud and clear during our campaign, all of us, that Wiarton was desperate to grow. Wiarton really wanted to see some growth. They wanted to have a reason for their kids to go off to college and university and come back home and work and set up a home with their families. So this council, we undertook a lot of significant planning measures to allow for this growth. We conducted a master service plan or study and created a master service plan with the EA. We've put in we haven't got a sewage lagoon anymore. It's there as a backup. We spent $6 million to construct an engineered sewage treatment plant, which has just been completed. We're actually talking to both the federal and provincial ministers are going to come up, it seems, to do a ribbon cutting for this engineered sewage treatment plant. So, I mean, we've made a significant investment in the town in order to allow for growth. With that, and to not burden our residents, we hired economists to do a development charge study for us. And we now have development charge or development fee bylaw, which was passed recently. So the new development is going to pay for this $6 million plant. If we don't have this development, then of course now we're looking at not only no growth for Wiarton, we're looking at a significant burden on our taxpayers, and no growth for Wiarton. I can't emphasize that more. I think what really concerns me is the fact that our town has bent over backwards, this council, to accommodate growth that our people want so badly, and yet, you know, we haven't had enough growth and development to date to warrant hiring our own planners, so of course we use Bruce County planners. They helped us through this. They sat down with the developer, they made amendments to appease the Bruce County planners, including moving that commercial component outside of the immediate blast zone, done all kinds of things, and co-authored paragraph 6 of our own OPA 30, which is in front of you right now. And then, after all of that's said and done, and everybody's happy, all of a sudden we get slapped in the face with, we want you to reject this. And it's like, where did that come from? Because we made all these adjustments to appease the Bruce County planners, and now they're telling you guys to please reject it. I'd like to know if, how does the Bruce County Economic Development team feel about the potential loss of all of this economic development if this is turned down? Like, were you even consulted? That's a rhetorical question. I don't want to put you on the spot. Sparlings. So we have a Sparlings plant in a different municipality, in a different county, on the other side of the road. Again, we've made an adjustment to take ourselves out of that immediate blast zone, as the deputy mayor coined it. But they have an emergency plan, and our fire chief has that emergency plan. They can simply build a berm if they're really concerned about safety. I mean, it would be very easy for them to just build a berm along Highway 6 in front of their plant. It's not that big a deal. If this is turned down, if this council turns down our OPA 30, and I mean turning down any component of it, you will be crippling Wyerton. You'll be severely disadvantaging the taxpayers in the town, and it'll force us to go to an OMB and file an appeal against the county for this, because we absolutely have to have this. We have done everything that we can, the best way that we can, to put ourselves in a position of growth. We've done it all, and now the mothership is saying, stop, we don't want it. So I'm really hoping that as mayors of your own municipalities, if you had this opportunity on your doorstep and you had a municipality, a center town that hasn't had any growth in 100 years, because of the sewage treatment plant that we've just built, we're now pulling in all kinds of development that's been sitting on the sidelines and has been for years. We've got the Vista View project, 45 homes that are going in on Frank Street. We've got the Heritage Homes, 27 more homes going up, and those are seniors' homes up on the west side. We've got all kinds of development that we've now opened the doors for, and this being the most significant of all of them. And we can't afford to lose it. We can't afford to lose any components of it, because if we eliminate the commercial retail components of this, it'll kill the whole development. The developers aren't going to, they'll just walk away from this. And we can't afford it. We've done everything right. We've done everything that we can possibly do. So that's all that I really wanted to comment on. And I really hope that you support this town in our desire to grow and recognize the fact that we've put ourselves in a position to do it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Janice. Other comments? Milt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, show me what the town wants. That's it, right? That's what the option? Janice?
Yes, this is OPA 30 as it was passed.
So that's,
We've moved, this is the commercial component.
so just show us on, yeah.
Yeah, it used to be all down here, now it's moved up here, so that we've allowed for that area.
And just okay, so that's that. So we're saying, Chris or Jack, what are we saying, Jack?
It used to be like that. This was the old one, so with the commercial component down, now it's up.
Okay.
And this was something that was fine with the planners. This went forward to our municipality as having the support of Bruce County finally, after making these adjustments, and our municipality passed it. But it took a long time to pass it because we wanted to make sure that we had all of our ducks in order, every one of them, before we passed this. And so that's why it's incredibly disappointing to even be sitting here arguing this on behalf of my town.
So that was the change that was made, and the commercial was moved.
Yes, because that seems to be the key concern, is the desire to prohibit a commercial component to this development, which I think is really unfair and unwarranted.
So just to simplify again, Jack, we're saying,
I don't know that I can give you a two-word answer.
it doesn't have to be.
Okay. The amendment that came forward, county and municipal staff were concerned that it presented substantial risks to the town. The council, and I'm trying to recall if it was the council of the day or the current council, asked staff to propose an alternative amendment that could address the risks to the town. From the review of those risks and that amendment, staff came to the recommendation that the most appropriate redesignation for the town to undertake was what you see in option 2. That was presented to the town. The town asked then, that appeared to not be copacetic with the proponents of the development, and so the town asked us to try again and find some middle ground. And so we worked through with the developers to identify a number of changes to the amendment, including reorientation of that village center and some text amendments. And the recommendation that we made to the town was that your staff recommends that the best option is for the town's amendment to redesignate employment lands to residential, and that's it. And this other option, we have done our best, as you see in this recommendation, to mitigate risks to the extent possible, should the town wish to adopt the amendment. And so that's the same recommendation that we have to you. We believe that option 2 is the best. Option 3, through the consultations with the developers, has been designed to mitigate risks to the extent possible, should the county wish to adopt or approve the town's adoption of option 3.
Comments from council? Ann?
I think I've got a better handle on it this time than last time. And I do, I want to support growth in the Wyerton area. And I'm sort of a believer in build it and they will come. I've seen that in our own municipality and the part we share with Huron-Kinloss on Saratoga Road, for example. When I lived there, I thought, what's somebody doing thinking of wanting to build this lovely retirement community in an old gravel pit? I thought, we have, between Huron-Kinloss and the municipality of Kincardine, we have more desirable locations. Well, now, both south there to the old gravel pit and north to in our municipality, that's where people are just flocking there, and it's the development on both sides has exceeded my expectations. So, and as far as the costs, I think that's South Bruce Peninsula's financing. We're trying to do the same thing here. We're trying to, in the municipality of Kincardine, is to find a way to finance more water and sewer in, especially out to 9 and 21, but also north in the Beeline and things like that, and we're working on it. So I'm quite happy to let you figure out your financing. So I'd like to support this. I don't have much trouble with if there's a bit of commercial development, it might not take off. To me, I still think often retail and commercial complements each other. You know, if there's 2 or 3 stores in the same line, we'll go to Wyerton because we can go around and have a good selection, or whether it's Kincardine or Walkerton. So unless somebody gives me a really good reason, I would like to support. And I've struggled, my struggle has been between option 2 and 3. I really didn't consider option 1.
Okay, Mike?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Like Ann, I will want to support something that will see Wyerton growth like anywhere else. I guess I'm a little confused. I mean, this has been a very complicated issue, and I'm a little confused on the map that map and option 2. And maybe for clarity, I mean, the map, so
Sure. The map shows a number of different patterns, and what it's showing in this map of option 2, you see this area here is currently designated industrial land, and it would be designated residential. To the east is currently designated residential land, it would stay residential. This is currently designated highway commercial land, and it would become residential. And this area here is currently designated highway commercial land, and it would remain highway commercial. And if you go to option 3, which you see there is to the west here. Option 2 also, I guess, includes this. This is lands outside, that were outside the urban boundary, brought in through Official Plan Amendment 157. They become rural. This is, again, lands that are becoming residential. This is lands that are becoming residential from industrial and from highway commercial. This is the village center area, and this area in here remains highway commercial.
One has a village center and the other doesn't.
I think that's
the long and
really,
short of
really
it.
where I was trying to get
Thank
with
you.
it, beyond that. So really, it's the village center that's the difference between option 2 and option 3. Okay. Then one other question, I guess, and it would be one that I think it's legitimate to ask whether, and I don't know, the concerns or the whatever regulatory concerns or would be from the propane storage. I see that arc. I mean, I'd like clarity on that, I guess.
So as we described, in the land use planning process, these propane facilities are required to identify their risk safety management plan in a hazard area. And we're required to issue notice to any facilities for changes to the designations of any lands within that risk safety management profile or that hazard area. And so that was done, and then the process as we understand it is that it gives them the opportunity to understand changing land uses and adjust their safety plans accordingly. There's a concern by them that if land uses change to the extent that they cannot prepare an acceptable hazard management plan to reflect those changed uses, then they would have to cease and move their operation because they can't have an operation if they don't have an approved risk safety management plan. And so the result, their concern here is that the amendment would introduce permitted uses that might conflict with their ability to revise their plan in order to deal with those uses. And so their objection is based on the burden of adjusting their plan to reflect new uses. Including a burden that means they cannot be there anymore.
Just to clarify, so I guess really what I should ask is there's no law that says will not permit these uses here. It just says we need to modify a plan. We need to recognize that there may be higher risk or no risk, but there isn't a regulation that says you cannot do. I guess that's what I'm looking for, what we're suggesting.
Kelly?
Through you, Mr. Chair, when the item occurred in Eastern Ontario, all propane businesses were faced with new regulations, and one of the suggestions that's been forwarded is with this passage of this application that Sparlings are suggesting it will basically prevent them from continuing to operate that site as a going concern because the financial burden to be in compliance with the provincial regulations would cease to make that site profitable.
Janice?
So they need to come up with a new emergency plan, or they can move. And they're in a different county and a different municipality. And hanging up our entire growth in our municipality and our county is over a plan. I'm surprised that, well, not really, but it's unfortunate that they put that propane plant right across the street from our town. They can put it as far away from their town centers as they can in Georgia and Bluffs and Grey County, but they stuck them right on our doorstep. So anyway, thank you.
Robert?
So what you're saying here, if we go with option 3, Sparlings will have to move away. They don't necessarily, but they can't expand, or if we take option 3, what do they have to do to stay there, and how does it affect them in the future? I want that
They
clear.
would just come up with a new emergency plan. There's already an emergency plan in place right now, and our fire chief has, our town has that emergency plan. They would probably modify it, but there's already residential that's within that zone. There's all kinds of stuff that's already there, and they're still operating. They would just need to modify their plan, and I think they just don't want to spend the money modifying their plan.
What do you mean by modifying their plan? Is that a tremendous expense to them? Like modify their plan? Like, what do you mean by that?
Their emergency plan, if there happened to be an emergency, it would just be, they have like a certain protocol and the way that they would conduct an issue, mitigate an emergency issue. So they've already got a plan in place. It's just they didn't have any residential that was, over yonder. They have the houses that are all within their area now, and that's all a part of it. But quite honestly, one of the easiest ways to solve a problem would be to build a berm. And it would just be like a protective wall, kind of. Like, there's all kinds of things that they can do. I just don't want them to hang up our growth over one propane plant. It seems ridiculous, quite honestly.
It's my understanding that they would have to move the tanks? Is that
No.
not correct?
Nope,
No?
not at all. Nope.
We don't really know what is involved already.
All right. Further questions, comments? Do we need to hear from Sparlings on this issue? Not at this point.
Sorry. Mr. Chair, just one point of clarity. There was comments made surrounding the current capacity for the sewage system. I do have a question about both. Are services currently present for water based on this plan? I'm asking the staff professionally, are services available at the land?
The municipality has sufficient water supply to initiate development of these lands and to accommodate a fair bit. The specific pipe leading into the site is not there at present. And similarly, from a lagoon perspective, the municipality has lagoon capacity to initiate development of the site. And I believe an EA is currently underway to deal with a pipe to get flow from the site to the lagoon for, again, an initial phase.
We've more than doubled our capacity with the sewage treatment plant over the lagoon.
Okay, thank you. I will call the question. That local official plan amendment applications, South Bruce Peninsula official plan application number 30-11.58 be modified to reflect option 2 attached as Appendix A to this report, and that the director or manager of planning be authorized to sign the appropriate decision sheet. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Nobody? That motion
In the
is,
past, I think, when a recommendation is brought forward, we usually moved and seconded and voted it down so we can go on to the next recommendation. So I'll be happy to move that, Dave.
do I have a seconder? Robert? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is defeated. We can bring forward further motion that would deal with option 3.
Yes, I would appreciate that.
Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll move that.
Been moved by Janice, seconded by Ann, that we go with option 3. Further discussion? Mel?
And just, Janice, I just wish there was more cooperation between Sparling but I guess there isn't.
Yeah. The ball's in their court to do what they would like to do. I mean, they can make adjustments or, you know, it's up to them. We've made tons of adjustments for them, and they've done nothing so far,
So if we make decisions that make them move,
No, they don't have to move, though. They don't have to move. I mean, it's an option, but it's not one that they have to take. Not at all.
Okay. Anything further from council? I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of South Bruce Peninsula, I thank you very much.
Should we take a break for
Yes.
lunch?
I gotta take a break.